Hi there, guys. Just some ordinary dude here, and I am accompanied once again by real Gilbert Gan. Today, we are going to discuss the recent seasons of the Loud House compared to the older seasons. Um, so obviously, a big recurring argument that you'll often hear within the following of the show is that the show jumped the shark after Chris Savino was gone.
Oh yeah.
And it
Uh,
wasn't really that
can we
good. It's
not
not been
say
that
his
good in
name?
years. Yeah, you've heard
Not
the
say his
argument.
name.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because obviously Chris Savino, he was the only one who can write great Loud House stories. Even though, if you actually look at his body of work outside the Loud House, if you remember,
Yeah.
he was the one who kind of drove Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab into the ground back in the day. But apparently, he's now the only one who can write great Loud House stories. But yeah, we're going to sort of go a little bit more in depth into this issue because a lot of people say the more recent seasons aren't that good and they're a bit boring. And don't get me wrong, the recent seasons have their flaws, but
Yeah, I understand the fandom's problems with the show.
obviously it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't think the show jumped the shark. Um, Here's the thing: do you think it's fair to say instead of the show having gradually decreased or increased in quality, it's more a case of in the early years the show had a lot of recurring problems that weighed some of its episodes down, and over time it overcame those flaws and got rid of them, and then as time went on, developed some new ones in their place. Is that a fair way of putting it? Maybe.
I can't say, but the one thing that really made the Lighthouse fandom so mad was you can't say this episode on that is from the second season
Hmm?
because I understand some people did rage quit at that time.
Yeah, I
To
mean,
the
yeah, well, I mean, we know which episodes from the second season
yeah, well, we can't
caused a
say
lot.
that here.
Yeah, Brawl in the Family and No Such Luck. The episodes which, yeah, they're pretty bad. But are they really the worst pieces of animation to ever be created? I mean, you guys, have you all seen Food Fight? They make Brawl in the Family look like a friggin' masterpiece.
I'd never seen that.
It is awful. Let me tell you now. Food Fight makes No
Not a
Such
single
look
thing.
brilliant. I'm not even kidding. Um,
Um,
but
I
yeah,
can't even tell the quality of the last Airbender with that live action adaptation movie. But yeah,
yeah.
in this case with the Loud House, I think they did a little bit better within the next between the fifth season and the sixth season.
Yeah, I personally, here's for me, season six of The Loud House, I would probably consider my second favourite
Sorry.
season of the show's run after season three. Like, I think season three is often considered the best season of the show by a lot of people because it had a very good balance of character focus. It had many great stories. It had a few duds, but nothing outright bad. It got rid of all the flaws of the first two seasons, and it was before a lot of creative direction issues with the later seasons had developed. It was like almost the perfect combination of everything. Great stories, great characters, a good priority of focus on certain storylines and character dynamics. Really funny, really endearing. And I can see why that's like the favourite season, but I will say season six is a very close second because that has a lot of those same strengths. And the thing, like you just said, season six, it did really well after season five. Now,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on season five? Because that's probably the biggest turning point of the series in a lot of ways.
If I had to be honest, I believe when the first episode of season five came in, I think there were some stereotypes about Canadians as well.
Yeah, there was the episode was schooled, and
In
obviously Lincoln
school,
went to Canada in the
yeah,
second half. I
yeah,
think some people got a bit angry by that, but I don't think that's really the problem. I mean, I liked most of Schooled. It's a very good
I did.
story. The
I
only thing
actually
I
enjoyed
didn't,
that
yeah,
episode too.
yeah. I mean, Schooled. It's a very good story about like Lincoln overcoming a lot of just a lot of trial and problems in his life. Like he gets dealt
Yeah,
the short end of the stick when he goes there, and he gets stuck in Bolton Hofter's class.
consi- considering that he's going through middle school right after
Yeah,
being introduced in Middlemen.
Yeah, I mean, it did. If there's one problem, well, there's two problems I have with School. One, it undid a lot of what middlemen had established. Like middlemen said, actually, middle school's not so bad, and then School obviously
Yeah,
says, yeah, it's terrible. So that's like, okay, you've kind of undone
that's
that
like a
episode.
that's like a big irony there, if I
Yeah.
got to be honest.
And then obviously, speaking of that, Lynn Jr., the subplot in School with her being a hormone, I am not a
Oh
fan of.
boy,
I'm like,
that is not a fun thing to look at.
yeah, I'm like, I'm a big Lynn Jr. fan, but it's like I'm willing to
So am
admit
I.
on certain episodes they don't do a good job portraying her character, and I'm like, School's got to be up there. And I'm like, why did you do this?
I'm like,
Middlemen established
Jesus,
that she cares
why?
about her brother's experience in middle school. Why is she going against that here? You know,
Yeah, I think it's just wrong.
I think it was. Here's the thing: School was written by several different writers. Most episodes of the Loud House aren't written by that many different writers, and I think there
Hmm.
were probably just like issues with communication and putting it all together. And I think
Yeah,
that was one of the flaws that unintentionally ended up making it into the final cut. That's the only logic I've got there because I'm like, it had some very talented writers working on this. Like you had Whitney Wetter and Andrew Brooks and all that, and it's like these guys know
yes.
what they're doing. Like
Chip
they've written many great,
Peruski.
yeah, written many great stories. So I just have to think it was just a big faux pas collectively, and it's just one of those one-offs, you know. Um,
If I gotta be honest, no episode is perfect.
no episode is perfect.
That's
Um,
true.
but with season five as a whole, I think they had some really great stories, some really good writing, a lot of gems in there. But I think the main thing that held it down for a lot of fans, and the main reason I think a lot of people started to turn on the show around this point, is the show's creative direction. And what I mean by this is we got a lot of it, like a lot of episodes focus on Lincoln and his friends, and the sisters are nowhere to be seen.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you've got so much flip. There's so much flip in the recent seasons. It's like, my God, come on, give this guy a bit of a break for
Uh,
once. And then you've got, your Cheryls and Mels
hey,
and your Scoots, your Bolhoffners.
yeah, I think, in my opinion, throughout the fifth season onwards, I think they also focus on other characters as well. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Girl Jordan,
She's had a
you got
little bit. I wouldn't say she's focused on that much
yeah,
more than she was before, but a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
you
I
got
mean,
Stella.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, she's now part of Lincoln's friend group, so I mean that makes
That's
sense.
true.
Um,
It does make sense,
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do
but
like
sometimes
the world building. Um, but I think there could
yeah,
be a better balancing of the character focus in season five, if that makes sense.
I think come again.
I do like the world building, but I think they could balance out, how much focus they give to certain characters a bit better, if that makes sense, in that fifth season.
I think they do.
Yeah, I mean, to a point they do. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think
At
season
least you got
six did improve on that. I think they did do it a bit better than season five did it, and that's probably one of the
yeah.
things why season six is a further improvement on season five. Season five is good, um, but I think
I
season
actually like
six, yeah,
this sixth season overall
yeah,
because it does had some improvements with the show as well.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of
I,
great
the,
improvements.
yeah,
Technically, especially like
the one
the
things that they distance themselves is on a series of innuendos from the show. If
right,
that's my opinion,
yeah,
because if I do recall, I believe throughout the first and second season they got a lot of innuendos that you would see,
yeah,
particularly in toilet humor.
right, yeah. I mean, to be fair, some innuendos and some of that kind of humour can work, but not necessarily all the time. Um, maybe you're saying like they've got maybe like a bigger variety of flavour of humour now than they used to, perhaps.
Yeah, but there's still a little bit of those cartoon physics as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I mean, well,
When
that's the thing. What fictional media buddy often points out is that in the earlier seasons, it was the characters that were outlandish, and the scenarios that were a bit
Outlandish,
more grounded. And now in the more recent seasons, the characters are more grounded, but the scenarios are more outlandish. Um, and obviously, with that, you get a lot more like surreal elements. You get cartoon physics. You get all
It's a
that
little
sort of
bit
thing.
absurd stuff.
Hmm?
Sometimes it went a little bit absurd. If I'm not,
Yeah, I mean, the show is embracing its surreal elements a lot more in recent seasons. Sometimes this works. You don't want to
it is.
overdo it because you can deviate away from like one of the main appeals of the show. I think as long as it's contextualized well, you can do like
Yeah,
cartoony, surreal storylines and gags. Don't do it all the time. Sometimes a story is better
yeah,
if it's kept in a more grounded state, if that makes sense. Um, but you can do it sometimes here and there. I don't mind them going into that sometimes, you know?
yeah. The biggest issue that they had with throughout the fifth season onwards is how the loves are aging up.
Well, honestly, they made a big deal out of an age up between seasons four and
Yeah,
five, and I'm like, it's not much of an age up. Most of the characters look the same. Lily looks a bit older, and Laurie went
yeah.
to Fairway, but it just felt like it was an excuse to change Lily's design slightly and put Lincoln in a new school, and that's basically it.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if they were going to do an age up, I think they should have like tweaked the characters' design slightly, make them feel like they're really, actually older. You know, they could have done a bit more with that age up concept, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, take the example of Dirt of the Really Loud House, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, in the really loud house, it's sort of different because the actors are actually aging, aren't they? So
That's right.
you've got no choice but to age them up because they're going to look older.
Yeah.
With the cartoon, it's like, well, cartoons usually don't. They'll try and keep it the same. Like, look at The Simpsons. It's been around since 1987, and Bart Simpson's still 10, and Lisa's still
Yeah, I've
8.
still seen that to this day.
Yeah. Yep, they're still airing those new episodes. What season are we on now? Season 37 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I kind of
I,
forgot already
yeah,
how
I
many
don't
seasons of The
know,
Simpsons
but
are
yeah, they're
nowadays.
doing so many now. It's like it's ridiculous. They've been around.
Yeah,
The
back
Simpsons have been alive longer than I have.
then. Yeah,
When I was born, it was already coming. It was already near the end of its golden age. So like, it's been deteriorating for my entire life. That is
yeah.
something. That is.
Well,
Uh,
I have a. Would you ever imagine if the current seasons of The Loud House, would it be its golden age?
um. Again, I think most people would say its golden age was season three, but then again, I think I don't I don't really think there's that much difference in quality between the different seasons. Like for example, season three is my favourite season, closely followed by season six. Season one and
Well,
four are my least favourite seasons, but I don't think there's a massive level of quality difference between, say, seasons three and four. Um,
yeah, the early episodes of season four was okay for me,
yeah, like the only
especially the
reason I rank
Casagrandes arc.
season four as low as I do is because a lot of episodes there was a fifth of the season was dedicated to literally a different show, and I'm like,
Yeah, the
that's
Casagrandes.
yeah. I'm like, don't get me wrong, Casagrandes is good, but you're
Yeah.
literally showing us a different show for a fifth of the season. That's just like that's taking the piss. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, that's the only best part of season four.
I mean,
The
to be honest, season
Casagrandes
four
stories.
actually does have a lot of great episodes. Game Off, A
Yeah,
Dark and Story Night. There's Any Given Sunday. Sister Act, I think, was from that season. There's loads of great
Wheel
episodes.
and Peel.
Yeah, yeah. There's loads of great episodes from
That's right.
season four.
Dark and Story Night. That
Yeah,
was a
that's what I
fun
just said.
episode.
Yeah, but yeah, don't get me wrong. So I don't think I don't want to say there's a golden age of the Loud House. I think every season, every little era that you could split it down into, they all have their strengths and their weaknesses. Mostly strengths. They're all very good
There,
but flawed in different ways. I think the show had a lot of flaws early on. It often gave all the sisters a hive mind and made them the same personality for the sake of a plot. There was a lot of mean spirited humor that went too far. There were a lot of bad
Yeah,
morals. You know, there were a lot of just dumb episodes in well in the earlier seasons, and they got rid of that. And then there was and not to mention the weird stuff like
yeah,
Clyde having a crush on Laurie and Laurie being a bit
yeah.
thought of back then. And obviously they got
That's
rid of
why I
a
call
lot of
develop.
that.
That's why I
Yeah,
call character development right there.
yeah, yeah. The only issue with that was there was the episode "Change of Heart" from season two, if you remember, where they
Yeah,
actually it
I
was
was.
actually about Clyde overcoming his weird infatuation with Laurie, and they undid it by
Yeah,
the end of the episode, and then off screen
that was a
he just
big
learned it anyway.
irony.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So "Change of Heart," terrible episode, could have
I mean that
actually,
episode was laughable at best.
yeah, it
For
was
me, it was
awful.
laughable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose you could look at it that way. The more I look back at Changing Heart, it was just awful. But anyway,
Hmm.
those early seasons had a lot of problems, as good as they were. And then they got rid of those problems over time, and in their place, they've sort of developed new ones. So, as good as a lot of the episodes are now, they do focus on not particularly interesting things. We get so much of Flip. We get a lot of stories that just aren't that
Hmm.
interesting. Like if you look at the end of season seven, there's an episode about Rusty doing
Real
spells with
school.
Morpheus, which I don't think anyone was particularly that
I
into.
think that was season. I believe that was. Let's break a deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that,
Let's
that was
break a
the.
deal. At the very end, the
That was
last.
a
Yeah,
not fun episode for me to watch. That.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
like, what the freak?
yeah. Like which episodes would you particularly say were not fun from that season? Then.
Well, the worst thing for me in the fifth season was blinded by science because
That's the fifth season. Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
quite a few people didn't like that one. I liked
Even
it,
I
but it did
never
have
loved that.
problems. But yeah, seasons five and season seven to a point, they are very good and have a lot of good episodes. But they do have some
Have some
duds in there. Yeah,
imperfections.
they do have some
They do have some
duds. Yeah.
imperfections.
Um.
Imperfections and speed bumps.
Sorry, what's perfection?
I said imperfection.
Oh, right. Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot of episodes like from say seasons five and season seven where you just like that's not very interesting. Like the episode Party Foul of or if you're going to bring back a Casagrande's character for a crossover episode of The Loud House, you're really going to pick
Oh,
Sergio. That's the
I would ride that bird
yeah. It's like he's an
for
okay
sure.
character, but he's just a C grade Yargo. Let's be honest.
Yeah, more like an F grade if you're asking me.
Well,
If
I think he's okay.
because
I just think in the Casagrandes he was overused a lot for what I remember, and so
the
was Carl
well
to a
the
point. But then again, I'm more
the one
forgiving
thing
on
that
that.
went too far with Sergio was the end of season two in the
Yeah,
Casa Grandes.
yeah. I mean, they
That's one.
overused.
That's the one that made me
Yeah,
cross the line to hate him more.
yeah. I mean, they overused Carl a lot as well. But I'm a bit more forgiving to that because he was actually quite a good character in
Mm,
his own way. Um,
yeah, I
but
even find Carl okay, but
yeah, like
they
the
should have they
Casagrandes
should have
had a
focused more on the other families.
yeah, like the Casagrandes had the same problem as the recent seasons of Loud House. Good storytelling and all
Yeah,
that, but they didn't always focus on the story ideas or characters that people were most interested in. And I think that's the
yeah,
main issue. The newer seasons of the show, they're technically better in almost every way, but they just don't focus on things anyone finds interesting. Um, Not well. Sometimes they do. Like, but then again, look at season seven. What were the best episodes from that season? Like, in your opinion?
hmm. I think, in my opinion, it would probably be. I think the road trip episodes and
Yeah. Or in particular, from the road trip arc, I would my favourites from that were Dole Day Afternoon and Screen Queen. They would be my favourites from that arc. Um, but other than that, you had some really great episodes like Bye Bye Birthday and Candy Crush. But for me, two of my favourite episodes from season seven are two of the ones that are not only told really well, but just have some of the most interesting premises. Like Can't Win 'Em All. Lynn wrestling for an
yeah,
episode. That's a great
yeah.
idea.
Considering
And
I'm a wrestling fan
yeah,
myself,
and a great execution. Of course that's going to be a fan favourite. Another one,
Yeah,
Dread of the Class.
Uncut
Another one,
Gems,
yeah.
Dreaded
Uh,
Class. It's one of my favorite episodes so far.
yeah, that's the thing. Dread of the Class is the sequel to April Fool's Rules all the way back in season one. We've been waiting since then to
Uh,
see an episode like that. And we finally got it in season seven. It only took them the best part of a decade.
yeah, yeah. This is like April Fools being corrected
Yeah.
properly.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, April Fool's Rules did have an actual sequel in Fool's Paradise, and then Fool Me Twice, and then
Yeah,
Silence of the Luans. But
yeah.
obviously, like we always wanted to see Luan and Ronnie Ann like doing pranking together.
Yeah,
It only
and
took that
add
long.
Benny into mix.
Yeah, I mean, have him in there, have Lincoln in there. That was just a really
Yeah,
great episode. He only really focused on three or four main characters, but the dynamic was so good. And it's like this is
that's
a really
true.
great episode. We all want to see stuff like this. People want to see episodes like that. They don't want to see episodes where Rusty's doing a deal with Morpheus, or where Dante's hiding something under the ground, or you know
Yeah,
Gus is learning
yeah.
to
You don't want to do
sing.
those morbid stuff.
Yeah, and it's like they're okay episodes, but they're not that interesting. Just they have a threshold on how great
Yeah.
they can appear. How great they can be in the eyes of the fans, like of the other
I
show's
even admired.
audience. Yeah,
I even admired the episode Child's Play and Force of
yeah, that
Habits.
was a really good. Yeah, those were really good episodes. I think I
That,
actually did a review on Force of Habits. I think it was last year.
yeah.
And yeah, it is a
Again,
solid episode. It has its
again,
flaws, but it is
season
good.
7 is the best season so far. If I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest,
What season seven?
yeah.
Well, for
I don't know.
me,
I don't know what the eighth season will bring up to
yeah.
us.
Well, with season seven, I almost put it on par with season six. The only reason I put season six on par with over season seven is because the last run of episodes weren't particularly that interesting. They didn't focus on
Yeah,
very interesting things. Um, I think season six does have a slight edge over seasons five and seven in that respect. I think it focused the most on interesting ideas and characters, and still told them really, really well.
yeah.
Um,
People have been talking about that all the time
yeah,
throughout the seventh season,
yeah, but yeah, I think that's the thing.
and there were in fact a lot of fan favorites on that
Yeah, I mean, every
season.
season, if you look at it, has some fan favorites. Whenever somebody tells me, "Oh, this whole season sucked," I'm like, "Okay, except this episode and that episode and those episodes were all great." So not exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think any episode of the show is bad. I think it's just a case of each era of the show has its own set of flaws, and it just depends which ones bother you more than others. For me, every era of the show is good, some better than
yeah,
others, but I don't think there's a massive difference in quality between the seasons. I think it's just different eras have different problems, but it's still always good. And I don't believe this narrative where, oh, after Chris Savino was fired, the show went to shit.
yeah,
No, that's just not
yeah.
true.
That's just wrong.
Yeah,
Unless
it's
if
far
your
more nuanced
opinion
than
is
that.
incorrect.
Yeah, the situation is far more
Unless
nuanced
if
than that.
someone's opinion is just that they wanted to have attention to be toxic.
Yeah. And not to mention, you
That's
got
the
all
only
these haters
problem.
like Cartoon She and Mr. Enter going on about it and trying to
Yeah.
force this
Oh
narrative
yeah.
down your throats. I mean, they do it
Oh
just
yeah.
for the money. Like Cartoon She
Tucci is
admitted,
the
yeah.
Tucci's the worst. If I'm gonna be honest.
Oh, he's an absolute dick. But that's
I
a,
mean,
that's a topic for another video sometime, maybe.
yeah, it's even worse when you want to see Tucci babble about a Loud House Christmas and the really loud house.
Whatever.
Oh,
The
I
guy
want to
does it for the money,
just
and
makes me
that's
want to
all
hit
it
my head.
is. Yeah. You
Just
know
makes me
what?
want to hit my head
Yeah,
on the
and I think
table.
with that, we're 24 minutes into this segment, so I think we'll end it there. But yeah, this whole idea that the
Um,
recent seasons suck, it's just not true. Um,
so, if
yeah.
I gotta be honest, overall, I think season 5 onwards, it's already polarizing.
Yeah, it is
That's
polarizing, but it's still like very good stuff. It's just,
yeah. You got
yeah,
the and like I said earlier, no episode of the Loud House is perfect.
no.
You gotta find its strengths and you gotta find its weakness.
Yeah,
That's
I've
all.
never given him. You've probably maybe seen some of my reviews of the show before.
I haven't read them.
Well, I have like a whole reviewing system. And I've never given
I
an
think I can
episode
find them on.
100%.
I think I can find them on Reddit somewhere.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to some, and you can have a look for yourself. In fact, I did recently did a
Yeah.
review for the new No Time to Spy movie, and believe it or not, Whitney Ware actually liked it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I haven't. I haven't made a review about the two movies earlier, so
yeah,
maybe I should do one
yeah.
myself
Yeah,
someday.
I've done a review for each of the films. I can send them to you if you like. But yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're 25 and a half minutes in, so I'll end this particular segment. Um, yeah, this whole narrative about the recent season sucking is just wrong.